Glad to host you and welcome to the show. One and only Seth Barnes. So excited to host you, our favorite analyst, hailing from Forrester, now CSO at Sandler, and he will lead today's panel. It's been a year that we are waiting for this moment, Seth. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Finally be able to come back after a hiatus. So thanks for the opportunity. Really been looking forward to this. So
Awesome.
we're ready to jump in?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so the when we look at buyers today and like when Julia, when we were talking about this, the area that I'm focusing on heavily, even though I'm on the sales side, the marketing and customer success elements are really one of the biggest challenges to be able to effectively help buyers and engage buyers in a way that gives you a chance to actually win. And in a lot of cases, you see companies that are doing things that are more around the how do I put people together, or how do I make you work together so you're friends, or that you're happy with each other. And the reality is a lot of this is, I would argue, almost all of this is your technology and data infrastructure. It's just not set up to make it happen. And one of the big questions that came up when we talked about doing this was just how do companies take all the interactions, all the engagements that are happening and with a buyer through a buying process, all the different buying group members, all the different revenue members, selling group members, and then pull those together and be able to work to maximize your chances of winning. Nobody can really do that right now, and actually no person can really do it. And the thing that's going to make it happen is really agents. And that's what I get the good fortune of discussing today with this distinguished panel. Before we jump in, I want to do just a quick round of introductions for the group. So if I could have each of you just say 30 seconds, who you are, where you work, and what you do, that would be great, and then we'll jump in. So I'll start with Alex.
All right, I'll jump in. Thanks, Seth. Great to see everyone. I'm Alex Gay. I lead marketing at Grammarly. I've been with Grammarly for the last 8 months. Was previously with Adobe running their document cloud business, and excited to be here.
All right, thanks, Alice. Jala, did I pronounce that right?
Jale, yeah.
Jale.
Hi, I'm Jale Rezai. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Mutiny. We help companies break into their target accounts with personalized marketing.
Fantastic. Great. And then Jordan.
I'm Jordan. I'm the owner of Greaser Consulting. I've been in the sales execution, sales engagement space for a decade now, which always blows me away to say anymore. We specifically work with like sales tools, sales technology, sales engagement, sales execution for the implementation, optimization, strategy related to it. And we work with clients, big, small, and everything in between. Basically, if it's sales execution, that's our world.
Awesome. Okay, so each panelist has kind of a unique experience in go-to-market. So I'm going to start things off by just doing a specific question for each of you. And Jordan, I'm going to start with you. So you're an expert in making outreach work for companies. Can you talk a little bit around how outreach is using agents to improve revenue outcomes for their customers?
Yeah, which, I just gave the decade comment. I remember when I first started in the outreach space, there was this tool that could put a couple emails together in some series of events, and wow, this thing's amazing. And it just blows my mind today with all the AI that's integrated. I mean, you have like assist related features, things that are going to surface when a deal's going sideways, what your next step needs to be. Here's what you should say on a call, all the way up to, hey, here's a batch of accounts that it finds for you. It gets prospects for you. It sends messaging for you. It curates the messaging for you. So yeah, it's been a dramatic change, and then certainly accelerated over the last year versus what all things the reps had to find to now what just sort of happens automatically and efficiently. Yeah.
This isn't your old school 10-step sequence anymore, is it?
No, I mean, there's all kind of amazing things going on, and it's been a I mean, I look at this stuff now and I think about 10 years ago whenever I was an SDR, and I'm like, I can, let alone finding information, now what to do with it, and now it does it for you. It's a little bit wild for me to to even stop and think about.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. All right, Jale, I've been waiting to ask you this question. So a while back, you posted that ABM is like teenage sex of the last decade. Everyone's talking about it, few are actually doing it, and nobody's good at it. This is a fantastic quote. It's one that I'd agree with. Can you talk a little bit more around how agents can solve this, and also if you've seen any progress on ABM understanding since you made that post? Because I think that was early in the year, right?
One of my spicier LinkedIn hot takes. What I was really referring to there is that if you think about the promise of ABM, what companies want when they implement ABM is for marketing to be in the trenches with the sales team, focused on breaking into every single account. And fundamentally, has not been possible before AI and agents. There is at least 10 times as many sellers as there's marketers. Marketing has to work in a scaled way. They can't just go super deep on every account and execute at that local level. But with agents, you change the game, right? It's not just about targeting accounts with an ad. Marketers can now access all of the call contacts that a rep has, instead of begging reps for context on what happened, what are this account's pain points, where are they in the process. Agents can now access that context automatically, and they can access it across accounts as well. And then they can translate all of that, research and knowledge into really personalized one-to-one marketing, all within minutes, as opposed to a world where those types of things took months to create. So on average, that type of one-to-one ABM requires one marketer for every 10 accounts. Now with agents, you can do this at least 100x that volume and velocity. So I think we're at the beginning of really being able to see marketing go into the trenches at the account level with sellers.
So, in working alongside agents, you actually can be, because that was always one of the challenges, right? And I'd have conversations on the sales side. It's like how marketing can't really work with you because there's one of them and 200 of you. But setting it up and structuring it with agents would enable that to allow that one marketer to handle those 200 sellers and be able to work with them all the way through the pipeline.
Exactly.
So, awesome. All right, Alex. So you come from a really strong marketing background. Currently at Grammarly, you worked at Adobe for many years. How are you seeing agents helping to break through and better align with sales?
And actually, I'm a seller by origin, so I kind of took the sales path to marketing. So all of this feels very, very
What's
real.
wrong
And
with you?
what's wrong with me? Yeah, I wanted to help at scale. So
Yeah.
but no, it's a hugely exciting time. Like where we've started to see the opportunity of not just agents, but a lot of the AI platforming that we're bringing in is really just about being able to understand the customer at a much deeper level. So, both at Adobe and Grammarly, we brought in really strong propensity models where we could look at, every signal that was available to us to try and understand really as granular level as possible what people really cared about. And so that was incredible intelligence to be able to have across the customer base to enable SDRs to target better, to enable sellers to focus conversations better, to enable marketing to target better too. But actioning against that is where it starts to become challenging, and we were just touching on it before. But now being able to feed all of those insights into agents to be able to create dynamic content that the seller knows is going to be valuable to that particular customer, really focused, really personalized, really anchored to what we understand, is going to accelerate the sales process significantly. So I think so that's been a real opportunity that we've seen on personalizing all of the content that we have to the individual. But I think more broadly, when I think about the pools on a seller's time, agents have this opportunity to accelerate a lot of the preparation to set sellers up for success. So if you kind of think about, you wake up in the morning and you've got a list of customers that you're trying to connect with over the course of the day, some briefings attached to it. Agents are set up to be able to set you up for success, where they can understand everything about the prior conversations that you've had, dynamically create customer briefing documents for you, create the presentations that you'll need that are anchored to what you understand already and what will provide value from what we have to present, and accelerate that path that a seller's had to having a really high impact conversation. So those are some of the ways that we're starting to see the technology permeate into the sales process right now. And I still think we're just scratching the surface.
Really interesting. I mean, what I was thinking of when you were talking about that is it kind of lets a marketer do what they need to do, lets a seller do what they need to do, and the agents are removing the friction between how they would work together to do it.
I think I would look at it, I'd flip it around a little bit, which is like we are able to action much better on what a customer needs from us. So through all of the channels that we have, we can understand that customer, what that customer's pain point much better, and through then sales, through marketing, through every customer, even CX, through all of these touch points, be able to personalize the communication that we're having with that customer based on what they care about. So I think it's a bit about how all of the signals that we get from the customer can get translated into the work that we do, and get really focused into what they care about the most.
Yeah, so beyond just here's the standard pitch deck, it's here's the pitch deck that's perfect for you.
For you as an individual with this pain point at this organization. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. Super exciting. Okay, so now let's go into some just defined questions, and I'm going to back up a little bit just because what I've seen with a lot of people is when you say agent, that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I want to run through this fairly quickly, but just can you guys give the context of when you of how you define an agent? 30 seconds. This is what my definition of an agent, because I've heard anything from an agent runs my entire business to an agent is a single task automation tool. So it'd be good to have the context. So when we go into some of the deeper questions, we know where you guys stand. So,
well, I'll give it a stab first, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So for me, an agent has to know what you need it to know to get your work done. It has to be there where you need it to be able to take action. It needs to be proactive and boundaryless, so it can't be restricted to just a single platform. That for me are kind of three fundamental pieces. I think if it don't fall into some of those categories, I think it started to become an assistant versus an agent.
So your version and how you think about it is pretty mature. And
I think it has to be connected to data, it has to be integrated, and it has to be borderless.
Got it. Okay. Jordan, how about you?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm so much of a stickler on it's not, dependent on one platform or not. But for me, it's basically, can it make decisions on its own? So anytime we're in a situation where it serves up information, but then we kind of say go, don't go, change this. I think that's what a lot of people say is an agentic AI, but that's like an assistant. Agentic AI to me is you tell it what you need and it does it. And you're sort of out of the equation. You could monitor it, you can stop it if you need to, we hope, right? But the point is, it can make those decisions for you and act on it.
Okay. How about you, Jolly?
I agree with these definitions, but maybe a slightly different way of looking at it is I think we are temporarily using the word agents a lot to delineate between old AI and new AI. And the way I describe old AI is kind of this micro tasking, right? You have one very small task, you write a really good prompt, and AI does that. And you just kind of do that hundreds of times. Whereas with agents, you can operate at a higher abstraction layer, describing an outcome, like Jordan and Alex mentioned, and then the AI will execute a multi-step process for you to be able to get that done, and it can reflect and optimize on all of those things that you would expect from a system that's operating at a higher abstraction layer.
Great, that's a great perspective. Okay, I'm going
we
to
make
stick
it.
with you. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, like, it's really hard for teams just now, because I think there are, like, as every application that you're working within is bringing agentic value to it, like the burden that's put on teams to understand, like, number one, how to use each of the individual agents within those applications, understand how those agents can work together. Like there was an MIT study just a couple of weeks ago that talked about the frequency with which Gen AI applications are, and integrations are failing, and it's in large part because we're putting so much cognitive weight on team members to understand how to use all of these capabilities. Because I think, like, in my mind, as platforms are bringing agentic value to the market, they really need to think about, how do I simplify as much as possible the user experience to be able to drive simple adoption of the tools and be able to get value fast. And like that, I think, is the fundamental challenge that we've got on driving the right adoption of agents across teams at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I see working with clients around that is, like, there's two things, right? What's the best? Because every single customer will have 8 or 9. Like, if you want a tool to write an email for you or to help you work through things, there's tons of opportunities. So it's which is the best one to use, and then the counterbalance to that is what's the best in the flow of work. And trying to figure that, you're putting a lot of pressure on people to figure that stuff out that have never had to deal with that stuff before. So it's so true.
So
Jordan, you're
just to jump in and a little bit lighthearted here, but I was working with a team that, oh my goodness, the amount of information that they could gather via AI and just give a brief. I mean, it was just astronomical. It was amazing. But they could get it for each account, which started to become a problem because it's like you need a neural link in order to process the information in a meaningful way and to know what to do with it. So just sort of piggybacking on Alex here is like, we can get all this information now, but now that's becoming a problem, right? It's like, I can't process fast enough to keep up with it. Maybe you all can, but I'm not there yet, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different type of world, right? Different. You have to look at things a little bit differently. It's so true. Jelly, I'm going to go back to you just on to the next question that we have. Because all of you guys have seen things differently. I'd be interested in what the coolest use case that you've seen so far, or one that you really think is valuable that people should take a look at or experiment with.
Yeah. I mean, inside of our organization, we take a lot of lessons from coding tools. I think they tend to be at the leading edge, developers building for themselves, right? And there's just a lot of things in code that lends itself really well to agentic development. So Claude Code is the one that we use here a lot. With our own product, we've moved pretty aggressively into agentic, right? So like if you look at old versions of Mutiny, you could create a full campaign, but you would write prompts for change this headline, create this ad, make all of these changes. Now the stuff that we are kind of working on and shipping now is you can work with an agent to create an entire campaign for you based on a core concept that you have for that campaign, from the landing page to the ad to all of the assets to the brief to the distribution. So it's getting really exciting. I think we're just at the beginning with agents. I look at every agent that comes out and go to market. I haven't seen a lot. There's a couple that we are right now evaluating on the sales side. There's one called Momentum that looks pretty interesting and compelling. But I don't think that there is really big deployments of agents or that there's been a lot of clear winners, but they are starting to pop up, every week. So I think the next 6 months is going to be all about finding really good agents that can execute at a much broader scope.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of look back and it's changed a lot just in the last year. A lot of what we're doing today, we weren't even thinking about a year ago. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Jordan, for you, what's the biggest use case or the use case that you think is most viable right now?
Yeah, I'm going to go sideways on this answer. Believe it or not, I actually think the ability for each team member to have some type of version of access to AI, even just to talk to in their day to day, has been massive. And so, what I don't mean by that, I know there's a lot of go to market tools, and that's the focus of this whole conference. And I think that's fantastic. To Jalay's point, I mean, I think right now there's still a lot of hype, and we're still trying to figure out exact deliverability. But what's amazing to me is I can have an entire team where I give them Grok or OpenAI or something to just kind of beat on. And the solutions that they come up with, like on their own, has actually been incredibly fascinating. I mean, we've had some guys do like AI songs that actually worked with prospects. I mean, it's a simple thing, but that was something that, instead of them spending hours trying to come up with something, they could type something in, put it out, and it actually worked. Folks that are thinking through, well, what should this pitch deck be like? And I'm a horrible graphic designer, and them just to be able to go in, give some ideas, and it does something beautiful for them. And so, believe it or not, to me, the most fascinating thing with all of this is actually the creativity that it's unlocked for people, sort of independently. Now, to be clear, I know there's going to be, and there are enterprise grade solutions that are fascinating and great, but I've loved seeing my own team like use different things, unlock their creativity, just in the day to day, and how that has sped them up. So a little bit more of a decentralized answer.
Like a thought partner that you'd have with you.
Exactly.
I can't wait to get my BDR email with a song in it. It's coming, isn't it?
Yeah, well, probably. Just wait.
Cool. All right, Alex, to you. What's your the coolest use case you've seen?
I think so there's one which I think is most prevalent, and there's one which I most acutely feel. The most prevalent one, like we're seeing obviously the rapid adoption of people leveraging meeting assistants. I think that's been the primary adopted use case, certainly for us, and I think more broadly. But I'm excited for when that transitions from not just transcription but to action taking. So we're starting to see some of that lean in, but like it should absolutely be the case that your meeting agent is taking the appropriate actions from the meeting as well to help speed you up. But I think for me personally, one of the things that I love it, and I'm sure there are many people who can sympathize with this. I wake up in the morning and I've got a bunch of Slacks, bunch of emails that like I start my day by just checking all the communication that happened overnight, and I bringing in an agent. We ended up we purchased Superhuman, the platform, which like was this great unlock for me personally, where all of the emails I get overnight can now be categorized and responses drafted for me. So instead of having to go one by one, I can know like there's actually 3 things I should care about that came in last night, and here's an auto drafted response in my tone of voice that I can then just like send off. Like for me, that's just shaved off like 30 minutes of my morning routine that I can now just focus on making sure my kids get to school on time. So like personally, that's my massive unlock.
That it's so interesting the way you guys the way you guys talk to it. So we've got an agent that could work with you to do a job, right? Creating a campaign and seeing that all the way through. And then you guys both talked about one on the far end of how do I become a thought partner, and then one on the other end on how do I become more efficient. Wow, the span on this thing is kind of big, isn't it?
It was interesting hearing Jordan. Actually, my team right now is running a hackathon, which has traditionally just been the product and engineering teams. But we start building a bunch of marketing issues that we have that our product and engineering teams are helping kind of lean in on and look at ways that we can build or buy in tooling to help us on look at ways to accelerate our processes even further. So I think it's a great way of, Jordan, you talked about the experimentation that the teams can have. I think you can architect those opportunities for the teams to just go away and try and figure out some problems, see what's out there.
Interesting. Great. Okay, so we just got through talking about some of the really crazy things that you can do with AI. So I'm going to move us on to the next question, and it's somewhat related, and in that, like, because of these use cases being so big, it's really hard to sift through things. So with all these claims, all these different things that are being pushed at go-to-market leaders, what guidance would you give to help a buyer who's looking to purchase this stuff sift through all of this and find a solution that could actually add value to them? And Jordan, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'll say two things. The first thing that runs through my mind all the time is just because I could doesn't mean I should. So I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but you've seen like posts about the AI SDR, and I'm sure that like some of them are starting to figure it out. But you've also heard of teams that turned it on and turned it off immediately thereafter. Like I think they'll figure it out, by the way. I think they'll get there. But like just because you could doesn't mean you should. So I could turn on my entire database and probably in about 2 weeks I could reach it. I could hit all the touch points. I might even have my biggest 2 months ever. But then what happens after that? Right? Is there anything left? Is there any more juice in that squeeze? So that's just like a fundamental question to ask of what's the downstream effect? What's the long term? I know this will speed me up. I know it'll make me more efficient. But in 6 months, what's it mean that I just did this? In 12 months, what does it mean that I just did this? So that's a big question. And then, I mean, obviously, and I'll just call this out, I'm incredibly biased on this one. We do implementations, managed services. But the fact that this is what I eat, sleep, and breathe every day tells me that when teams say, just turn it on and go, whoa, especially when you're dealing with things this powerful, I would absolutely want to ask the question every single time, what's it take to set this up well, intelligently? What's the time span? What's the work involved? There's still going to be a human in there somewhere that's thinking about how we turn this thing on well. So in terms of like, where do you start? Again, what's it look like 6 to 12 months later? Just because I could doesn't mean I should. And also, what's it look like to get this set up are the fundamental questions that I'm asking every single time before you even tell me how great this thing is.
Gotcha. So practically looking at where it's going to go, not today, tomorrow. Don't make a knee-jerk reaction. Get rid of all your BD. It's always funny to see the notice around I've gotten rid of all the BDRs, and then a month or two later, you see job postings for that same.
Very quietly, very quietly, we're hiring and expanding in Austin.
But we renamed them. They're sales associate something or others. That
Yeah, AI intelligent workers.
yeah, there you go. There you go. Makes sense. Yeah, focus on that the long-term piece. All right, Alex, how about you? What advice would you give to someone that's trying to navigate to the right solution?
I love Jordan's advice. I think coming back to that point of why a lot of the AI implementations fail, I think really understanding what's the change management that is going to be required for this to be successful. So as you're bringing in tooling, how do I make sure that teams are set up for success? Like how much of a transition is it from the way that they're working today, from the way that they'll work tomorrow? And how comfortable are you going to make that journey for them? Like, I even from the early days of Copilot being deployed, I think still people didn't really understand how their work was going to change. And it was only when you started looking at Copilot coming where the work was happening. So again, meeting assistant being their number one use case is because it's right there. It's doing it for you proactively. So I would really think about that experience side of things. How can you make that tooling integrate into the way that people are working today, because that'll drive your adoption, your comfort level. And people are in this early stage right now of trust on having the AI tooling do the work on their behalf, and that trust is going to rapidly grow as people kind of see it within the flow of the work that they're doing, when it feels like an extension of them and their work. So I would just anchor on that, like that experience, the change management that is going to be required of the user, and just make sure that you're being realistic in your expectation of the teams and giving them the fastest path to value.
Yeah, so it's if you have an expectation, you're just going to buy it, turn it on, and it's going to work for you. That's probably a bad, and that's been brought up a couple of times.
Yeah.
You don't buy the solution. You have to understand what you want it to do, and then implement it. There's still people involved. All right, Delay, how about you?
So when I used to lead go-to-market teams before starting Mutiny, my advice on buying software to my team was always make sure that we understand the problem that it is solving for us and that that problem is a tier one problem. I think with AI, it's extra tricky because it's an emergent technology. You learn what it can do through experimenting with it. So it's extra hard. And I do think it's important that people are open-minded, they're out there, they're exploring, they're learning. But then I would say have a pretty strict regimen of coming back and making sure that you can attach it to a top priority for you. An exercise that I do with my team is, let's say you own pipeline, whatever your goal is, I would ask yourself, how can we 3x that? And then from there, what is the set of problems, stack rank them. If this particular AI or product doesn't solve your top three, this is not the time to invest in it. And instead you should go look for things that can help with those top three problems.
The tier one piece is the one that stood out to me. Is don't just go try to look for this to solve any problem. Look for the biggest problem that it can solve, the one that it can make the biggest difference. And you see that missed a lot because if you're buying it to try to create emails for you, if you're buying it those are not tier one problems. You've got to that makes a ton of sense. All right, so let's move to the next one. And Alex, I'm going to start with you because you kind of started down the change management track. Can you talk through some of the best practices that companies that you've been a part of, that you've seen are going through to handle that change management? Because it isn't as simple as like we talked about earlier. I'm going to take a BDR out and I'm going to put an agent in and job done. They'll do that work. It isn't how things are today.
Yeah. I think you've got to map out like the full workflow of this. How are things going to work from a people and an application standpoint to get to that right level of outcome? You've got to have your internal champions that are helping drive the change for you. It can't be mandated. So, like the example of the AI SDRs, like transparently, we're bringing some of that right now, not as a replacement, but as a complement. We see the opportunity where we're getting a ton of signals that are coming in, but we see AI SDRs as being able to drive engagement with prospects to the point where they're nurtured sufficiently that an SDR will have a human SDR will have a really valuable conversation. But that took us partnering with the SDR team to really figure out like what are the challenges that you have just now, and how could some of this tooling help you. So they championed the use, which was tremendous. They didn't see this as job replacement; they saw it as job enhancement, and as such, that's going to be setting us up for success on driving that change. So I think understand the workflow, find your champions to be able to help scale it, and then just set realistic expectations. Like there's an interesting framing that was in a Microsoft study about the difference between expectations of executives bringing in AI for the impact it's going to have, and then the how realistic the employees think they are going to be able to achieve that improvement. There's a massive disconnect that happens right now. So I think be realistic in the expectations that you have, and test, learn in the same way that you build products. Like test, learn, iterate, and get better.
Yeah, that foundational stuff hasn't really changed, has it? Like that's
No.
just kind of the way these products still work. Now they go faster, it can do different things, but yeah, the foundations are there. It's interesting because I think like we've talked about a few different times around BDRs and eliminating BDRs, and I think it sounds like everyone is kind of a similar opinion that's not a good idea. But being able to implement AI to help do research for a BDR, hugely valuable. To do top of funnel customized email, huge. Like there's tons of value within the workflow to be able to do it. So, and you should implement there, but not as a replacement.
Yeah, one thing that I like to remind people of is look at AI not as a cost saving, but as an outcome driver. So think about the output that you're getting and how that's going to grow versus the cost saving that AI will drive. Because I think that's ultimately what'll drive you to make the right decisions for implementation. I think using it as just a pure cost saving measure, you're chasing the wrong objective in my mind.
Great advice. Jalay, how about you?
I really like the point Jordan made a little while ago around enabling creativity and speed in go-to-market organizations. And I think one of the really exciting things about AI right now is that it can solve one of the biggest challenges in go-to-market, which is essentially that you have lots of people, everyone's siloed, everyone can do 10% of a job, and then it takes months and 10 handoffs. And the promise of AI is that every individual can now operate in a much more full stack way, because agents have a wide range of skills and they can access a wide range of contexts, which, if you're working with AI, you can then be a lot more powerful and get a lot more done a lot faster. And I think that we need to design the organization to be able to actually take advantage of that promise. I was talking with an enterprise team a couple of weeks ago where, the head of the team was like, we don't need any more approvals and handoffs, just go, and then there's the teams doing the work are like, well, we had all of these checkpoints and all of these approval points, and we need to make sure product marketing does this, and we need to make sure every single asset, sales reviews it and design reviews it. And I think neither of those two ends is good for an org. And I think a lot of those traditional workflows are being challenged with AI, where if you insert all of those checkpoints, that doesn't make any sense. So a lot of what I see things evolving to is upfront. When you invest in a product, you bring in the right stakeholders and you make sure that you inject the right organizational knowledge and guardrails into the product. And really good AI products, to Alex's point around like making sure that the setup is right, allow you to do that. You can set your brand, you can create a bunch of guardrails that is approved by that wider range of team, which then allows you to be able to move at the speed of your ideas and not have to go through all of those workflows and approvals.
I think you bring up a really good point around this, because the reason those checkpoints and all that stuff are in place is because you're trying to maintain a brand. Like it's not like people made those up just for fun. Like those are in place for real reasons. And if I think I understand it right, what you're saying is like in a lot of respects, those agents and AI can be the checkpoints that free up friction and allow for alignment without all the hard work of, let me make sure I take you through X, Y, and Z. I just put that in place and it runs through it and does those checkpoints for me without the friction. Very interesting. Right. Jordan, how about you?
Yeah, two comments on this, and I'm going to be just really tactical on the first part. To me, the great irony of all adoption is that it typically lays with your most junior managers, and those are your frontline managers. We forget your frontline manager is the person who's talking to the reps that this is happening to. Whether gleefully or not, it's your frontline manager that's going to handle the conversation, that they're going to take the intake of whether someone likes it, doesn't like it, this is different, this is odd. And I mean, we've done at this point, I think, thousands of implementations, and it's usually a surprise for the frontline manager to be like, wait a minute, why am I here? Because they don't usually get involved. It usually just happens to them, and then they handle the damage control. And so I think that probably the most pragmatic and practical way to have a good change management of anything is to go and enable your frontline managers first. Get them ready. Let them know what conversations are coming. Help them understand the why and the how and what we're planning to do, and equip that frontline manager to go sort of with the reps along for the journey. And again, like I said, the great irony is the folks that sort of cause a good change or not are usually your most junior people, which are usually your frontline managers. So that's my first piece, engage the frontline manager. And second, really simple, don't lie. Listen, AI, we don't all know what exactly is happening. Okay, the whole conversation of, hey, this is coming in, but don't worry, don't whatever. You got to let people know your job's going to shift a little bit at a minimum. You used to do this, you're probably not going to do this anymore. But as an organization, I think we do have a duty to not just be like, oh, we have AI, now it replaces something, see you later. How do we steward our people really well? And how do we make sure we help them in this transition and actually do something meaningful for their next step? And so when I say don't lie, I'm not saying don't lie, you know it's going to take your job. I am saying, though, if you know that's coming, don't lie and help equip your team for the next thing. But I do think, even though that is the grid, like the big fear, I think as Alex and Jaleh were saying, that it's sort of assisting the human, at least for now, is what I've seen is like the greatest use case. And so I think that's how organizations should be gearing it, but not all are. So don't lie.
Got it. So, I mean, the thing that was going through my head as you were saying that is like you may buy the product or convince your executives to buy the product top down because they're interested in buying it. You sell it top down, but when you implement, all of that stuff has to come bottoms up because it's going to implement workflow. It's going to implement how you do things. So you've got to focus on the people that are doing the work, not on some high level person putting it in place and saying, just figure it out.
Yeah, and all that's like all that matters, you know, the checklist, the enablement, the plan, it all matters. But if you figure that all out and then you don't enable your frontline managers for what's coming, I think you missed the mark. I mean, you asked me an outreach question way earlier. So early on, I was one of the like first people trying to figure out how do you train clients on outreach. And adoption was abysmal at that point, and we couldn't figure out why. Well, it's because we were working with the VPs, somebody in enablement, and then we would show up and train. And then the frontline managers were standing there going, well, that doesn't work because, well, we can't do that because your frontline managers are intimately knowledgeable of what's going on with your team, their psyche, their mind, but also the workflows and how they're doing things. And so once we caught on to if you win the frontline manager, you win adoption, that's when change management got way easier.
Got it. Great. Okay, so I'm going to do one more question, and I think we could do a little bit of Q&A. So just as we go through all this, there's all sorts of stuff happening. There's tons of opportunity. From your guys' perspective, where should someone start? And I'm going to do it in a two-step process for you guys. Do you start in sales, marketing, customer success? And if you do, where do you start? Where would you start in that different group? So which of the three, and then where would you start? So, Jaleh, are you okay to start us off?
I mean, I don't know if I would have a wholesale answer as to which department. I would say you want the best overlap of important problem and really effective solution. So like, for example, in customer service, Fin is an amazing product for automatically addressing questions and closing out tickets. The performance is fantastic. I really don't see a reason why you are not investing in that. And then, you know, I think in both sales and marketing, there's some really amazing use cases and there's some really big problems. So, you know, as long as something is a CEO level problem, I would say go for it. You should invest in it now.
So you see that there's enough solutions in each one of those three areas that you can identify the biggest problem and use AI to fix it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha. Okay. Jordan, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm going to vomit my mouth a little bit when I say this because I'm a true sales guy, and I don't want to cede any control. And it pains me here, but I think it starts with marketing. Just like marketing sort of thinks about the whole customer journey from beginning to end. And again, I hate to say this, but I think they set the pace for the organization. Even historically, they're the ones that have held all the budget. I say that a little bit bitterly, but they do. They hold the budget. And so I think they have to be thinking about this first. Now, what was said earlier, of course, you know, if you have a chat bot or something that you can answer questions easily and it just makes sense, great. But marketing really does own what's our brand, what's our customer voice, like how do we interact with the market and why. And so anything that's going to be agentic, that's going to touch a customer, I think marketing has to at least be thinking about it, and involved in some type of decision. Again, I don't like that answer, but I think it's the right one.
To piggyback off of that, I talked to a bunch of CROs about what are their top problems. And the way I would paraphrase their answer was that in sales, like, okay, my sellers spend 30% of their time selling, 70% of their time prepping for those meetings. And yes, I would like them to be more efficient, but that has a ceiling on it. The thing that can help me double my growth rate is all related to pipeline. The more pipeline I have, the faster we can grow and scale. And so anything that can help us, on the marketing side and generate more pipeline for the sales team is ultimately going to be the most important thing for the company to invest in. So yeah, I think if you haven't figured out the pipeline and you're not pedal to the metal on how to use agents to be more creative, more efficient, and double your results, that's probably a good place to start.
Interesting. Makes sense. All right, I'm going to temper my response because I want to hear what Alex has to say.
I'd actually go back to what Jalay said in one of the previous questions, which is like, what are the top 3 things that are going to drive your business performance? If you've got a CSAT problem that you think improving, that would accelerate your business fastest. That's where you look to try and solve for. If you've got a pipeline problem, that's where you try and solve for. So I think just like break it down as to like where you think the biggest unlock from the businesses as a whole, and that'll guide you to whether that's a sales, a marketing, a CS, or somewhere else problem.
Got it. Yeah, it's interesting. I was waiting for you to take the sales side because Jordan took the marketing side, and we would have had it all worked out.
I'm still a little bitter. Still a little bitter.
Me personally, I think a lot of it has to. I think the opportunity, because one of the core things of Gen AI is the ability to take and find insights from unstructured information, and everything a seller does, or the majority of what a seller does, is having conversations. So trying to mine insights from unstructured data. When I looked at it, that's a real opportunity that's never been done before. But I mean, the logic around pipeline, if you get more in, it's the biggest problem everybody's trying to solve, right? How do I get more prospects? How do I get more people into the pipeline to win?
Yeah, I'll be like my product marketing team are really digging into how we can unlock all of the data that comes from the customer conversations. Like how can everything's in Gong? How can we leverage that at scale and use that for competitive intelligence, product road mapping, everything? So we haven't implemented that yet, but that's definitely going to help this cycle significantly.
Yeah, you're actually going to know really, like honestly, what's happening with the deal.
Yeah.
Which will also cycle back into helping marketing understand where to invest, right?
I'm thinking less at the deal level, and I'm thinking in aggregate, like what is happening across the hundreds of conversations that are happening every single day, so we can start to identify the themes and the trends that can help us get ahead of things from a positioning standpoint, from a competitive standpoint, and really get to those scaled pain points. So that's I think going to be a big unlock for us.
Fantastic, cool. All right, so what I want to do now, thank you all very much for taking the time to do this. What I want to do now is just open it up for questions from the audience, if there are any. I saw 1 came through or 2 came through, so I'll go through those right now, and I think we have 5 minutes or so to go through that. So here's the first one that came in. So can you speak more to how a sales agent can effectively integrate into the sales process? I understand the value of the agent on paper, but integrating into a traditional sales process on a daily basis is challenging. This is really a question about change management. So we talked about this. I'm not sure if this came in before we discussed change management, but who wants to take a shot at that? Jordan, this one seems like right down your alley.
Yeah, I like in terms of how can it integrate, starting from simple to more complex. You can be running sales calls today and you're on Zoom running calls. You can bring in some type of conversational intelligence, Kaya or Gong or something like that, and then it can start to tell you, hey, you're doing this, you're doing that, change this, say this over. It's one of the fastest ways, by the way. It's most straightforward, simplest ways for you to see real effective change for a rep. Did they see their talk time difference? They see what they said and what they should have said. There's an example. There's now like deal health scoring everywhere inside of these platforms where instead of you just having your Excel sheet, even though it should be in your CRM, right, of all your different deals, it's going to tell you, hey, this one's at risk. Like deals that we typically win, they look like this. We tend to send an email shortly after, and then we follow up if we don't hear in 3 days. This type of information, as Alex said, in the aggregate, you can start to get and then coach your team to. You can plug in, for example, Explorium into Outreach, and then you've got this great data to run your agents on. These are the types of accounts I want. It finds them for you. It pulls in contacts for you. Like you don't have to have those days where you're going back and you're, okay, let me find the persona in this system. And then you do all these like fancy search criteria. You can just say, here's my target. Who's here I win deals with? Go find me more of these people. And as we talked about, you can gate this where you can just release this thing and it starts curating content and sending. Or you can say, okay, it's got me the information. Now, how do I want to work from there? And that's really part of this whole process, even in terms of implementation, is what's your risk tolerance? Like, are you want to be like cutting edge? We're just going to go for it. Do you want to be measured and have more gates along in the process? The really simple and short answer, though, is think about everything you've done as a seller from like a digital standpoint. There's bits of AI and all these tools that can do those things for you or help you or assist you along the way.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to what you said around, I mean, that approach, you got to start with the person doing the work and apply it and let them help you apply it into take all of these different opportunities and apply it in.
Well, I think there was a comment there on change management. Again, get the frontline managers involved, but even more so, this stuff, as soon as you get success, champion it, go crazy, preach it in the streets, scream it from the rooftops. Bobby Joe was successful when he did. Amy Joe was successful when she did. And just let the reps socialize it. I mean, that's one of the fastest ways you get buy-in is just reps socializing what works. Every once in a while, though, you'll get a couple of dodgy reps that are doing really well, and they won't dare tell anybody why. It's the name of the game.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So, Alex, this one came for you. It said you mentioned using agents and AI to pull highly specific prospect information like ICP, sales stage, etc., into dynamic content for custom sales presentations. Could you walk us through how this was architected and which tools your teams rely on? Also, how involved is marketing in the orchestrating this process at a high level? Because I think that's probably a 20-minute review to do it. But if you can provide like a high level of that in a couple minutes,
we were quite lucky in the sense that we're using most of our own stuff for this. So when we acquired Coda, Coda had a series of data integrations that we were able to leverage. So we were able to plug into Salesforce, outreach, other platforms to be able to both pull and also inform generative AI capabilities. So we brought that in, and then we used the style guides that you have in Grammarly to make sure that everything that was created was based on templates that marketing has created. So everything from voice to the value prop, etc. So that was really our starting point for it, is using a lot of what we'd already been like building ourselves. And so like happy to go into more detail later, but at the genesis, we thought, well, if we can benefit from it, maybe we've got something we can sell to customers, and thankfully it works.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to do one more, and what I want to do this is on a scale of 1 to 10. So for each of you, how far do we actually think the AI SDR is from being able to pass the Turing test? So Turing test being you can pass as a person. So, Jaleh, where do you think we are? 1 to 10.
I don't know. Jordan took himself off the mic. I feel like you're coming in.
Oh, no. You go ahead.
So human nature is we evaluate something and we learn from that, right? Like if something doesn't have good information or it's not useful, we label it as such and we move on. I think with AI, we have to fundamentally change that nature in ourselves. Every 3 months, if you want to be at the leading edge, at the latest, I would say every 6 months, everything needs to be reevaluated for quality. So yes, I think there was this huge shift towards AI SDRs and they failed, but I would not be surprised if with the next big model change and some really smart entrepreneurs that have figured out the right guardrails, you're going to start to see that work. So, I think we're very likely to be able to have a lot more automation in SDRs than we do today.
How would you score it today? 1 to 10. On where it is right now as we stand.
As we stand, where is it today versus
today?
Yeah,
Where
so
it
I
can
would
go.
think
We all
today-
know it. I think we all believe it'll get there. Yeah.
I would say, I mean, we did extensive testing with this. Today, I would say it's at a 2. If you look at real automation and being able to replace a human, for the most part, a lot of the stuff that people do is they automate the signals, but not the content that's being written. We're starting to see a bit more wholesale automation of content without human review, especially as agents are starting to review the content on behalf of the human. But I would still give it a 2 or 3 today. But I would say very likely that number is going to move up quite rapidly over the course of the next 12 months.
It'll never be worse than it is today, right?
Yes.
All right. We got 2 minutes. We got 1 minute left. Jordan, how about you? How would you rate it?
Yeah. I think, somewhere around 4 or 5 is a good answer to me. Shameless plug here. I've got an AI interview prep tool that we use, and we're tricking teenagers. They don't know that it's not a person talking to them, but anyone that's been around the block knows like pretty quickly. But to Jalay's point, like it doesn't matter if it's a 1 right now. The iteration is so quick. It's going to be double whatever it is today very quickly.
Yeah. Alex, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's early days. I think it's good assistive technology just now, and it will rapidly become self-sufficient. But I think then the question is, like, just because it can work autonomously, and should it? And how much do you want to invest in the relationships versus the efficiency?
All right. Where would you rank it?
I'd say it's at the low end of the scale just now, 2, 3.
Yeah, I feel the same. All right. Thank you guys very much. Really enjoyed getting the chance to talk to you. I always learned so much on these calls, and I hope the audience did as well. Julie, I'll turn it back to you.
What an amazing panel. Our community just started to compile AI songs in a Slack chat as a to your panel. But thank you again, Alex, Jordan, and Jalay. Seth, can help but ask you, what kind of M&A are you predicting? You're mute.
Boy, leave us on the cliff here, Seth.
Yeah.
M&A? I mean, aren't you seeing it all happen? I mean, there's a lots of the stuff I thought would happen. I'm still waiting for enablement and orchestration to come together. There's no reason why it shouldn't, except for egos. So that's what I'm waiting on.
Cool. And what's the best way to support you? We'll just do a quick round and wrap it up. Seth,
Okay.
Let's start with you.
Here to support you. If you ever need anything around the work we're doing at Sandler, around sales, marketing, customer success, don't hesitate to hit me up on LinkedIn.
Alex.
I think understanding the problems that you're facing. So please, be open and exploratory in ways that we can try and pull together innovative solutions to help.
Jalay.
Check out Mutiny. Give us feedback. Help us build the future with you.
Jordan.
Yeah, email me at jordan@greaserconsulting.com or find me on LinkedIn and let me do all of your services. That would be a great support.